Welcome to Diamond Day 2. Thank you for being here. I'm Laura. Most of you know me pretty well. And those of you who don't, you're going to get to know me a lot. But I'd like to begin with talking about you. For who here is this their first event? Wow, a lot of you. Oh my God, that's so amazing. I'm so glad you're here. You are so fucked. Why do I say that? Because every single component of the adventure and the journey that you're about to go on has been so carefully designed with so much intention, and you're amongst the most generous, fun, uplifting, one of the most in the world, sitting here amongst each other. So you're gonna get a little bit spoiled. And thank you for letting me spoil you. The purpose of Diamond Day is to unleash you. Like me in this outfit is unleashing myself, looking like a male ice skater. Yeah. And it's to get your wheels turning. Spoiler alert and damaging omission, I'm not going to tell you what to do while we're here. Neither are our speakers. And believe me, that's very challenging for them. But what we are going to tell you are thinking methodologies, action-taking strategies, and ways to improve your confidence and self-worth. This way, instead of asking us, what color should I make the background of my website? You will know what color to make it, and you'll feel great about it. It's a bit higher level, and the change is more exponential in that way. Is everybody ready for that? And here's what's so cool about it. You don't have to do a lot of work. Let us do the work. Trust the process. Know that every single question that might come to you will be answered in time and at the right time. Can you guys commit to trusting the process that we're going to go on over the next 2 to 4 days? Hell yeah? Awesome. So the theme for Diamond Day 2 is understanding. It's going to prove very valuable to you. The first thing we're going to begin to understand is what you came here for. You came with an intention, you came for something novel, and you came for a great experience. But I want us to dive in further and get you even more clarity on that, which we'll do in just a bit. Part of the process of doing that is pressurizing stuff. It's Diamond Day, after all, and pretty high IQ room. So we all know that coal, under intense amounts of pressure, forms diamonds. So some of the things that we're going to gently, lovingly, and strategically pressurize include your language, in here, out of this, the stories you tell, the patterns you observe in your lives, and how you translate them, communicate them to others, your yearnings, not your wants. There's a subtle but important distinction there. What you want, usually, is something that you want to achieve an end. I want a lot of money so I could feel financially secure. So financial security is the yearning. The more clarity you have on your yearnings, and the more honest you are about them, the better the action steps you can take towards them. Make sense? And that's what leads us to pressurizing your actions. So when you take actions that are out of alignment with your yearnings, you can lovingly call yourself out on that. Create the space to understand why you did that. And all of this led to a very powerful realization for me. Because in my coaching, I realized that so many of the things we do wrong, so many of the things we mess up, can be tied to feelings of low self-worth, low deservedness, right? Imposter syndrome, shiny object syndrome, asking for less, feeling like you can't do it, sabotaging the deal. I love to break things down into their fundamental forms. So I'm like, okay, if low self-worth is a huge reason for this, then where does the low self-worth come from, right? And of course I deal with this too. We teach what we most want to learn, right? So here's a story I always tell. My mom is a bitch and I hate her. She locked me in my room. I hate her. She strangled me. I hate her. My dad didn't do anything about it. I must have deserved it. Ha ha. I hate her. And it makes me laugh. It makes other people laugh. There's a shock factor to it. And I could say it's a vulnerable admission, but what I realized is that this has huge applications for me. Because if my mom is a bitch and I hate her, and I have her DNA, then there's some extension that is saying, I am a bitch and I hate myself. I have dirty DNA. The thought of having dirty DNA, to me, sounds pretty equivalent and like pretty accurate source material for having low self-worth, right? DNA, self, dirty, low worth. It's as close to an equivalency as I've ever come across. And I'm doomed in this way. I can't clean my DNA, right? I can't genetically modify it. Some religions make us feel this way too, right? Or maybe other family members, sometimes teachers, sometimes relationships you've gotten into, whatever it is. Nobody is unscathed, right? And this has very significant real-world actions and consequences for me, right? Self-harm, self-injury as a young girl, getting into more abusive relationships, getting punched in the face, not immediately leaving, feeling shame, getting fired from work because I showed up with a black eye. I abused alcohol because at first it heals, right? It does exactly what it promises to do. But because I crave more healing beyond that, I go too far. And of course, alcohol is not going to heal you beyond that. All of that leads to me not being as effective in my work, right? I'm not going to seek the mentoring I need when I feel like I have dirty DNA and low self-worth. I'm not going to ask for help ever. I'm not going to build a community. I'm not going to really trust anybody. I'm not going to take any smart risks, right? With the backing that I deserve success, definitely not going to grow a team, nor grow myself. And no matter what your journey is, there's this weird conundrum that we all have to live with as humans. We care about ourselves a lot. That makes sense. We're in our own heads, hearts, bodies, nearly all of the time. So of course we think about ourselves frequently, sometimes constantly. And yet, we may often feel cosmically meaningless in the great expanse, the infinite space and time. It's quite a juxtaposition. So it's reasonable to have some kinks. Would you agree? And here's why understanding this is so important, because it's how you find self-validation. The word valid, root word for validation, I'm sure you all know, is having a sound basis in logic, reasonable, not necessarily rational, right? Rationally, I know I don't have dirty DNA. My dirty DNA, my DNA is quite similar to everybody else's DNA in here. It's not dirty, it's just fine. But it's a reasonable reason to me, for me, behind the things that make me tick. There's a logic to them, a cogency. And it's complicated. I'm still in relationship with my mom. I'm working to gain empathy and to forgive her. She's gone through her own shit too. So even just at least getting this base level of understanding that, yeah, it's complicated, is incredibly helpful. I don't need a clear path. I don't need a yes or no answer. It's complicated and I can live there. To try to give all of that an easy answer is to invalidate it by definition. After all, to accept something, you have to understand it. The same is true of you, right? Especially your tics. It's much easier to understand the good stuff. Oh yeah, I love words. I'm a good writer. Oh yeah, okay. But the shadowy corners are much harder to get an understanding on, right? It's hard to accept something you don't understand. Wouldn't you agree? And you already experience this in your life, in your relationships. Have you ever liked somebody and all your friends thought you were kind of crazy, right? Like, why do you like that person? Like, I understand them. They understand me. In your investments, as more and more people understand or feel like they understand crypto, more and more people invest into it. The same is true of Tesla stock, gold, and even the awful stuff that happens to you. If somebody hurts you and causes you pain, but you sort of understand why they did it, aren't you so much more accepting of it? But you have to do the same for yourself. And in order to do that, you must remove judgment from it. In order to understand something, you must remove judgment of it. The same is true of you. In order to understand you, you must remove judgment of you. So any time, in my example, that I'm like, well, Laura, you had a pretty good life. You shouldn't feel like you have dirty DNA, you know? You always had a roof and food. Your parents worked really hard for you. They did. So I shouldn't feel like I have dirty DNA. So anytime I'm in the should, I am again, by definition, invalidating myself. And there's a huge opportunity for you, anytime that you're in the should, to catch it, be like, that was interesting, and then move into what is. What is that I have this feeling and it is reasonable. This is further proven by our friend Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. We all know about this, yes? Yeah, smart room. I love a smart room. There's some interesting things going on here. Let's start at the top, shall we? Self-actualization, the desire to become the most that one can be. Who here has the desire to become the most that they can be? Interesting. Smart room. I love a smart room. So there's some directionality here. It's not necessarily that one tier builds below the other and so on and so forth. It actually moves both ways. So now that we realize we all have the desire to become the most that we can be, we can look at some of the gaps in the lower things as to how we fulfill it. For example, the love and belonging piece, intimacy. What does intimacy really mean beyond physical intimacy? It means being understood by somebody else. That's why it's so fucking important. And the theme of Diamond Day 2. Self-esteem, recognition, in the rung just above it, understanding yourself. And the more you do that, the more you fill on, on the desire to be the most that you could be. Because when you feel like shit, those are the moments where you don't have the desire to be the most that you can be. So to put a bow on this, through understanding what makes you tick, you will feel more self-validated and have a higher sense of self-worth. You're saying, I'm important enough to understand, right? And for my tacticians, they're very important tactical applications for this. Because through understanding what makes you tick, you can build systems that are truly suited to you, not how you or the systems should be. In other words, you can create accommodations and enhancements for yourself, for your business, for your life. Here is what's going to sound like a silly, minor, yet incredibly huge pivotal example. I paste links everywhere. A lot of us have websites, right? Different product pages, different offers, a lot of different links, you know? And for me, I want to be able to get the link that I want wherever I happen to be on the internet. So I pin the link in one Slack channel, I pin it in another Slack channel, I have it in the draft email to myself, I got it in the Google Doc. I got the links everywhere, okay? It's a small thing, and I don't really care what my team thinks about it. Laura posted that over there. What I hope it does is empower them to realize, oh, I can make accommodations for myself. I have scissors and measuring tape in every single room of the house. I don't know why necessarily, like it could be some other home appliance, but for me, if I have to leave the room to get scissors, it drives me mad. So I just don't. I just put enough scissors everywhere. And I can communicate my accommodations and enhancements to the people around me and to my team. Just 5 minutes ago, I asked the incredible Kira, everybody. A lot of the reason you're gonna have a great time is because of Kira, and of course because of Cameron too, but I'm gonna hype them up a lot during this. I told Kira, I need mints everywhere. Put them on this table, put them on that table, sneak some in the back. This way, wherever I am, if I feel like I want a mint, I can just grab a mint. It's a really simple accommodation, but it makes me feel so good. You deserve that. You have your blank notebooks that I created for you with a lot of love and care, on lined paper, of course. I'm gonna give you prompts. It's native to my content, because while I'm talking about stuff that's pertinent to me, I want you to be able to take it and make it useful to you. So one prompt that I would like to give you is accommodations and enhancements. You can write it real big at the top of the page, leave the rest of the page blank. And when you have the time after the event, think about what are some accommodations and enhancements I could give to myself that I could ask others to give to me. Make sense?
By the way, I have an incredibly valuable free gift for you. It's called the 6 Simple Mind Frame Shifts that can add an extra 0 to your business. This guide is potent. It is something that every entrepreneurial person needs to see. Go check that out at mindframe.me.
Here's another tactical application of this. Understanding your receptivities and your proclivities and using them to your advantage. So I love stars, total star geek. I go out and look at the night sky nearly every single night. Okay. Maybe I could use my interest of stars to make me more productive. So if one constellation is moving this way, I better get my project done before that happens, right? I set those deadlines all the time. They're incredibly effective. Of course, it doesn't have to be stars for everybody. Maybe it's a horse, right? Whatever it is that gives you that gasp moment of beauty whenever you encounter it. So maybe every time you see a horse, you gotta reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. You gotta thank somebody else for something. And by the next time you see 3 horses, you better have acted towards that thing you've been saying you want. Or maybe it's a mountain, right? Maybe it's flowers, or a creek, crystals, or the strum of the guitar. Use what you're naturally in love with to fuel you. Now, for a long time, I felt the need to work through my love of stars with my desire to break things down into their fundamental form, which is what the periodic table of elements on my thigh is all about. I'll spare you all the jokes I make about it, like I'm a street chemist and I teach children. I didn't spare you the jokes. I told you them anyway. This came from me wanting to understand the fundamental blocks of our existence. Now, of course, my opinion on that has changed since I was 18 years old. I probably just could have gotten hydrogen, or a nucleus, or a quark. How small is small? But the sentiment remains. And I did get that tattoo at a pretty ratchet period in my life, as you can tell by the caption I wrote when I first revealed it on Facebook. The Regents are a statewide high school test that everybody has to pass, if you're not familiar. And relatedly, we have a majority of Leos in the room. Leo strong. And this is not because I believe astrology is this hard science and is always true, right? It's always rational. It's just fun to me. I don't even read my horoscope, but it's fun. But looking at this, I was like, I would launch an ad campaign that targets Leos and Aquariuses. I would test that. Which brings me back to our theme, understanding. I heard this quote from a very, very silly show, The Pentaveret, on Netflix. Super silly. It's very funny. Mike Myers' little series on Netflix. And I adapted it a little bit to serve our purposes. Because as soon as I realized that the theme for this event was understanding, my ears perked up every time I heard the word understanding, or understood, or understand, or any derivation therein, which is part of the magic of when you create little containers of what you're going to create, right? When you know what you're going to do. You don't have to outline super duper hard, but if you know the book is about understanding, you have a space for all of the magic of life to fall into as it unfolds for you. Does that make sense? Here is that quote. It's true, you were the mission assigned to me. And as I got to know you, I understood why you are the mission. I want you to think this of yourself, right? You are the mission assigned to you. And as you get to know you, you will understand why you are that mission. Make sense? So that's our lighthearted primer on understanding. But there's some language leashes. The point of this is to unleash you, right? So here are some leashes that limit our understanding. All or nothing thinking and talking, one or the other, black, white, dichotomous. For example, a friend of mine reached out and said, Laura, you suggested to me that I get a little bit more active on social media and provide value and post in groups to attract more clients and lead flow. But this other guy said he didn't really like that and that I should reach out to all of my former clients. What did I say? You can do both. And whichever one you do first is whatever you like. You don't have to choose one or the other. That comes from a desire to have the answer. Somebody tell me the answer. Why do people want to know the answer? I think partially it's so they can relinquish some responsibility for determining the best answer for them. And partially so they can have somebody to blame should things go wrong. So be careful. We all slip into this stuff. Just be careful when you do. And when we see one another doing it over the course of the next 2 to 4 days, let's lovingly call them out. Ask them why. Let's get some understanding on it. Why are you doing that? What might better serve you? Directionality. We saw it with Maslow. Most of life's phenomena does not solely move in one direction. Money follows attention. Anybody heard of that? Anybody ever heard that? Guess what? Attention also follows money. It moves both ways. Moralism. Does anybody here want to be a warlord? It's okay. James? No? No aspiring warlords. Okay, cool. Nobody wants to steal food from children. Pollute the water? No. Okay, great. So good, bad, selfish is useless to us. So anytime we catch ourselves over there, we can lovingly reorient. Make sense? I'm big E extrovert, by the way. So your loud voices and your eyes on me and your ears on me all really fuel me up. So feel free to yell. I stomp occasionally. If you feel a stomp within you, you can bang the table to make sure I hear it. Okay? Hell yeah. So given all of this, we return to, what are you here for? And we're going to do a quick exercise to dive in on that. Let's all take a deep breath together. For my nonconformists, I'm going to give you one more chance. Deep breath. It's going to feel good. We're doing it for you. One more time. Okay, and now we're going to close our eyes. Again, nonconformists, one more second. Close your eyes, and I want you to pay attention to what pops into your head As I utter the phrase, pay attention, what pops in. As I utter the phrase, exactly what you want. Exactly what you want. Not what you should want, not what you used to want, not what's attainable, but exactly what you want. Pay attention to whatever is happening. Take one more breath. Okay, we can open our eyes. Who saw something? Who saw an amalgamation and a mashup of things and rapidly changing things? Yeah, it's useful information. It's good to know. It's neither right nor wrong. It's good source material to move us forward. Okay, good. That moves us into cheat time. There's some guiding questions on the top sheet in your black folders to deconstruct the vision or the amalgamation or the pure blackness that you might have seen when you closed your eyes. I'm going to read through these questions, and because you're meant to answer them quickly, without overthinking, without negotiating with yourself, I want you to jot down the answer after I've read the question and as I riff on the question. Make sense? And if you need a little bit more time at the end, of course, I will grant you that. Question 1. What challenge are you open to receiving a solution for within the next 2 days? This is a light commitment, just your openness. The solution may come from an unexpected place. There is no judgment on whatever you write down, by the way. Remember that. Question number 2. What blockage, hindrance, or excess are you open to shedding within the next 2 days so that you can move closer to what you want? Because oftentimes, solutions involve letting something go, not adding on more. So let's be cognizant of that. We're creating those cute little buckets for the magic of life to fall into. And notice, closer to what you want, not more. I learned this from Nick Peterson, who I admire a ton. More is never ending, and it's abstract. Closer has a destination. You could better chart the path. Question 3. Can you write down something that makes you tick that you haven't deeply or honestly explored before? Or maybe it's worth exploring again. The work is ongoing, right? For me, it's stuff like, I take things personally. In business, I take business stuff personally. Because anytime I don't get a business outcome that I want, I feel like it's a reflection of my dirty DNA. But because I understand that, I feel so much more validated in it. And I'm able to begin to fix it. Next question. What's one thing you're open to receive within the next 2 days that would make this an amazing investment of your time and energy? And remember, there is no right or wrong. You can want a very material thing. That new partner, that new funnel strategy, whatever. Material things are great, very quantifiable. So there is no judgment and there's no right or wrong answer. Next question. What are you excited to contribute to your comrades within our next 2 days together? And I'll do about 1 minute to make sure everybody gets in something. This is my second nudge to you. In my notes, it says second, but I've probably nudged you more than 2 times already. But is it possible that everything you want is already in the field? It certainly already exists. You don't want something that doesn't exist, right? So I encourage you to stay attuned. For the questions you want to ask, the opportunity to ask them will come. For the proposals you want to make, the opportunity to propose them will come. But you must stay attuned to them. You must remain open and receptive to them. And when they come, jump quickly. Do not overthink them. Do not negotiate with yourself. And take notes in your conversations with one another. Everybody in this room is incredibly fucking smart. There are no dummies in here. God bless them. They're just not here. So as you're having a conversation with somebody else in this community, and they say something that you think is brilliant, and you're like, I'm going to remember that, don't bother. Don't put yourself to that challenge. Whip out your phone and take a note. Some of you know I'm a copious note taker. I have pages and pages of notes from conversations that I have with people. I just respectively say, mind if I pull out my phone and take a note? So they don't think I'm pulling out my phone because I'm bored, because I'm not. It's quite the opposite. So many of those notes fuel the things I think about, the things I teach on, and the ways that I help others. And I'm excited for you guys to do the same with one another. And with all of that being said, let's fucking go. Go ahead and check out my next video. It's the 3 things that are holding you back from leaping to that next revenue tier in your business. I'll see you over there.